Hello, fellow mech warriors, Mage Leader here. Welcome back to the Battlemech Primer, a series where I look up statistics on the wiki and in the source books, and then pretend that I always knew them. Well, you guys voted and I listened. Today, we're going to be covering another true Star League classic, a mech whose striking silhouette has been a symbol of the noble mech warrior for generations. Today, we're going to be discussing the Black Knight. The Black Knight was developed all the way back in 2578 by Kong Interstellar, a company that named itself after a fucking gorilla because why not? Kong, the company, not the ape, was a major military contractor for the SLDF, and the Black Knight was commissioned during the height of the Reunification War, a conflict that was horrifying for basically everyone involved. The Inner Sphere had always seen the Periphery as free real estate, and in 2577 they decided to go and snag it for themselves. Of course, it wasn't all about territory. The Periphery was something of a loose cannon, a zone beyond the influence of the Great Houses. To the Lords of the Inner Sphere, including the First Lord, this made them a threat. Not a threat in the traditional sense, though. None of the Periphery states had anywhere near enough resources to challenge the houses directly, let alone the Star League. No, the threat they presented was more subtle, and to understand exactly why that is, I'm going to take a brief detour and delve into ancient Terran history. I'm sure many of you have heard of a man by the name of Napoleon Bonaparte, perhaps one of the most controversial figures in history besides Robert E. Lee. Bonaparte came into power in a world that was set in old ways, ancient ways that dated back to the dawn of humanity itself, where the ruling classes held all the power, and the common people were little more than resources to be expended. All that changed when an upstart group of British colonies had, along with a great deal of help from France, successfully thrown off the English monarchy and established a new country with a radical set of ideas, the concept of equality and independence for the common man. The idea had struck France as well, and soon their king was also gone from power, albeit in a more direct and messy manner. Napoleon had swooped into the power vacuum and declared himself the Emperor of France, and began writing the ideas of the revolution into the laws of the nation. But it didn't stop with France. Napoleon's conquests would spread the ideas of liberty throughout Europe, and by the time Waterloo ended Napoleon's reign for good, the world was forever changed. Kings no longer ruled by divine right. The people had pushed for reforms that gave them greater freedom than they had ever had before, and the gap between the haves and the have-nots would shrink drastically. Fast forward 1,000 years or so, and humanity has expanded into the stars. In many ways, the great houses in Star League had reverted to the old ways, as maintaining open republics where all voices counted was nearly impossible on a galactic scale. Lords once again had control over the peasantry, and the elite few who ruled over worlds around them were some of the most powerful in human history. But the Periphery couldn't be controlled. It was a place where those methods and those ideologies had never taken root, and the Inner Sphere's ruling class feared that if left unchecked, their independence could become an inspiration to the common people, leading to a revolution the likes of which no one had ever seen. To prevent this, the Periphery had to be brought in line, no matter what the cost. And the cost would indeed be heavy. The SLDF soon found itself bogged down in a war of attrition with an enemy that simply refused to lay down and take it. The Periphery states were small and hopelessly outnumbered, but their homes and their freedoms were all that they had, and they fought savagely to protect them. And when your forces are small, and the enemy comes in with the largest joint army in the history of mankind, you can't exactly afford to fight them in the traditional way. Guerrilla fighting became a harsh reality. While many official units fought bravely on the open battlefield, many others saw the futility of such action early on, and instead turned to targeting every army's weak point, its supply line. It has been well said by many great generals that an army marches on its stomach, but there is more than just starvation on the line. When your supplies run out, that means your vehicles have no fuel, your weapons have no ammunition, and your battlemechs have no spare parts. The crunch of rapidly dwindling resources began to weigh on the SLDF, who had up until now relied on machines with lots of heavy cannons and scores of missiles. The need for a change became clear, and it was the Black Knight that would bring this change. The Black Knight was designed to operate with energy weapons only, the kind that could be powered by a mech's reactor without the need for large stores of ammunition. Once in the field, it could operate almost indefinitely. and it still brought plenty of firepower to the table with enough heat sinks to keep it from, well, exploding. The variant they produced was the BL-6KNT, and it made its appearance in the hands of the 3rd Heavy Assault Regiment. The Black Knight was equipped with a PPC, 2 large lasers for long-distance targets, as well as 4 medium lasers and 1 small laser. That's a lot of heat to manage, but the array of 20 heat sinks does a surprisingly good job of keeping it cool. So long as the pilot doesn't go insane with the light show, it'll barely break a sweat. The Black Knight was an instant hit, and it gave SLDF forces a much-needed edge as they battled the forces of the Taurian Concordat. It was a mech that could deliver a pounding, withstand a good amount of punishment, and do it all without having to rely on those pesky supply convoys that the Taurians kept blowing up. But it wasn't just the weapons that made the Black Knight so popular. It came standard with a state-of-the-art communication system as well, making it an obvious choice for officers and commanders. And then there's the look of the thing. Kong did their best to give the mech a heroic appearance, one that embodied not only the noble intentions of Star League, but also the chivalrous nature of the mech warriors themselves. Mech warriors are an odd bunch, with their own codes of honor much like the knights of ancient Europe, and so the Black Knight was built to personify those beliefs. The Black Knight would serve with distinction in the Reunification War, as well as the Ameris Civil War. However, its production was short-lived. Kong would lose their final factory to the fires of the First Succession War in 2820, and the supply of Black Knights would begin to dwindle. The great houses eagerly lapped up the design, and ever since the surviving models have been used as command mechs by virtually everyone who can get their hands on them. By the time the clan invasion rolled around, however, the only meaningful supply of Black Knights was the Com Guards, the military branch of Comstar. And it would be this very machine that would help bring an end to the clan's aggression at the Battle of Tukiyat. So before I wrap this up, we'll take a little look at the Clan Buster. The BL-9KNT is similar to the basic model, but everything has been turned up to 11. The PPC is now an ER PPC. The medium lasers are now medium pulse lasers, the heat sinks are now double heat sinks, and there's an extra large pulse laser thrown in for good measure. Oh, and a fucking 5-ton sword, because what's a knight without his sword? This variant was produced specifically for Tukiyat, and while it may have been an emergency refit, it sure scared the shit out of the clanners. The battle proved the longevity of the design, and soon after, Robinson's Standard Battle Works would negotiate with Kong and secure the rights to begin manufacturing Black Knights of their own. And so the mech returned to the Inner Sphere, triumphant and standing tall among its peers. So that's the Black Knight. It's a design that has adapted to fit with the times, a battle mech that simply refused to die. It's a heavy hitter that can be taken anywhere for extended periods of time, and is the perfect choice for anyone who needs to coordinate their troops. But more than that, it's a symbol of the noble mech warrior and all that he stands for. It represents not only his honorable nature, but his resilience and determination, and his drive to never surrender, no matter the cost. Or if you're not into that hippie pseudo-intellectual bullshit, it's a Star League era rave machine. So turn out the lights, and let the party begin. Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe for more content just like this. Until next time, this is Mage Leader, signing off.